take a timeout.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny, and welcome to ESPN Classic's Top 5 Reasons You Can't Blame, a series that takes a fresh look at sports personalities who are remembered largely for their mistakes, controversial moments, or questionable decisions. On this show, we defend an action seen as one of sports' biggest bonehead moves. April 5th, 1993, Michigan trailed North Carolina by 2 points late in the NCAA Championship game. Chris Webber, yes, now you probably know, rebounded a free throw, and after dribbling down court, the sophomore All-American called a timeout with 11 seconds to go. The problem was the Wolverines were out of timeouts. Michigan was given a technical, North Carolina hit 2 free throws, and the game was basically over. Dean Smith had won his second national title. Over the next half hour, we'll count down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Webber for Michigan's loss. But first, let's take a look at the circumstances that led to the Fab Five's doom in the Superdome.
Chris Webber and the Fab Five are part of a cultural phenomenon in America.
Rose, baseball pass to Webber. Can he catch it? He does. One step, slams it through with the right hand. Oh, did Webber fly for that ball?
They were like a rock band. They were the Beatles of college basketball, and people just couldn't take their eyes off them.
Drives on Bailey to the hole, slams it through.
The better we got, the more exposure we got, the better we played, the more the country fed into it.
Rebound, Rose off balance, yes! It's the buzzer! Jalen Rose wins it!
We came in with bald heads, black socks, baggy shorts, dunking on everybody, and laughing and having fun. That, I think, was part of the novelty of the Fab Five that people liked.
Midway through the 1991-92 campaign, Michigan head coach Steve Fisher decided to start a squad so young that none of the players had yet put 2 semesters together. But they had talent and attitude, and they played with an electric quality.
I think that basketball fans were so drawn to Chris Webber and the Fab Five because it was something fresh and new. We had never seen the spectacle of 5 freshmen without a care in the world competing on that level.
Backdoor Webber hits the basket! Oh, my!
We were cocky and we were ready. We're not scared, so, it's you against us, and that was just the best feeling.
And a steal by Ray Jackson to Webber for the showtime. Oh, it was showtime!
You can see a lot of arrogance and cockiness in their games to where they knew that they were one of the best teams in the country, if not the best.
We changed the game to the point where now, no, we don't have to wait till tomorrow to have success. We can have success right now.
We're gonna shock the world! We're gonna shock the world!
After finishing the regular season at 20-8, the fired-up freshman entered the NCAA tournament as a 6th seed and proceeded to outgun and outrun the competition.
Michigan's won! Michigan's won! They're going to the national title game!
Although they lost to Duke in the final by 20 points, Webber and company turned college basketball up a notch in the public consciousness.
What the Fab Five did for Michigan in '92, probably one of the most underrated achievements in the history of college basketball.
It's an amazing thing that they had enough maturity that freshman year to get all the way to the championship game. By the time they started the second season, we all expected they would win.
Voted number 1 in the preseason, the Fab Five were 31-4 after eliminating Kentucky in the NCAA semifinals.
Michigan's in the national title game!
Only North Carolina stood between them and a national championship.
Carolina, we knew it was going to be a tough matchup, but we felt we would have a chance to overpower them. It was our turn. Last year was just the warm-up. We got there. We know what it takes to get there. Now let's win it.
Led by the athletically gifted Webber, the Fab Five, which included Juwan Howard, Jalen Rose, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson, pulled even with the Tar Heels midway through the second half.
Phelps has it knocked away by King. This will tie the score for Michigan. Slammed by Jimmy King.
And with a little less than 4 minutes remaining, the Wolverines had a 1-point advantage.
Drops it off to Montross for the dunk behind Juwan Howard. What a play by the Tar Heels.
Down by 2 with 20 seconds left, Weber rebounded Pat Sullivan's missed free throw.
Rebound Weber. Weber covers it up. They're down to 18 seconds left. It's a 2-point ball game.
I just wanted to get the ball in, and I kind of hesitating almost past the J Rose. It could have been a travel there.
Weber brings it down court. They wanted to travel.
So when he finally turned around and saw me to throw me the ball, George Lynch reacted to the pass. So when he didn't throw the pass, he pump faked the pass, he traveled. They didn't call it.
Weber to the right side with Phelps on him. Weber in the corner. And now he's called what? Michigan can't take a timeout. They don't have a timeout.
I had a hot flash. Like, oh my God, what did he do? Just what did he do? And within a matter of 3 or 4 seconds, the same look I had on my face, like, it finally hit Chris Weber.
It's a technical foul on Michigan. They took a timeout.
I felt that I had let the team down, and it's all about the team. He told us that we had no more timeouts left, and unfortunately, the timeout was called.
It was real tough to swallow. I remember, it was a lot of tears, a lot of frustration.
A technical foul was levied against Weber. Donald Williams made both free throws, and the Tar Heels went on to win 77-71.
North Carolina's the 1993 NCAA champions.
In the gloomy aftermath, the Fab Five's main man blamed himself for the loss.
We just called a timeout. We didn't have one. That probably cost us the game.
He was the leader of that team. He should have responded and been able to know that they didn't have any timeouts left.
That was almost symbolic of what that team was. So much hype, so much glitz, so much fashion, and yet in the critical moment, the defining moment, he doesn't know how many timeouts are left.
You can blame Chris Weber because he called the timeout and they didn't have any timeouts left. And the blame falls to the guy that put his hands into a tee that night.
No matter what Chris Weber does in basketball, everybody's going to remember he called the timeout when they didn't have one.
But there's so much more to this saga. Before we begin to count down the top 5 reasons you can't blame Weber for Michigan's loss, here are a few that just missed the cut. We call them the best of the rest. Michigan was behind. When Weber called the timeout, the Wolverines trailed 73-71.
He shouldn't be blamed. North Carolina was ahead at that point. This is Michigan's last possession. They're dashing down the floor, trying to get a final shot off, hoping that they can tie the game or win it.
People think that was the reason why we lost the ball game, that if he wouldn't have called a timeout, we probably would have won, but that's not true because who would have said we would have scored?
It didn't surprise me that they didn't get a shot off. 20 seconds left in a game. 18, 19-year-old kids who must execute something. The advantage goes to the team that's ahead.
Our final best of the rest, the bench. According to Weber and at least one Tar Heel, someone on the bench was telling him to call a timeout.
Chris said he heard somebody holler timeout. So as he's pushing the ball, time running down, national championship game, he makes the call.
I heard timeout. So in a situation like that, I probably would have called timeout too.
So Chris Weber is hearing timeout, and he's hearing it come from the Michigan bench, and he just instinctively calls timeout. He never should have been in that situation.
Welcome back. Let's begin our countdown with reason number 5. The ghost of Fred Brown. Some attribute Weber's mistake to the curse of the Superdome.
If you're a superstitious person, then yeah, you could look at it and say, it's really the ghost of Fred Brown that got into Chris Weber.
It's like Brown reached over with some sort of poltergeist-like thing and moved Weber's hands to go like this.
The black magic that visited Weber in 1993 was first spun by Brown on the very same court in New Orleans. With 7 seconds left in the 1982 national title game, Georgetown trailed North Carolina by a point. Then the fickle finger of fate reached out and touched the Hoyas point guard.
Fred Brown looking. Oh, way to Worthy! Worthy 5! The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship!
For believers in the metaphysical, Weber's missed call 11 years later was caused by Cajun voodoo in the Big Easy's dome.
He takes a timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul on Michigan. They're out of timeouts.
What are the chances that Dean Smith would come into that building twice in his career and clinch national championship games because an opposing player makes an unconscionable play at the exact moment when the game is decided?
I don't know whether it's witchcraft or what was going on, but those were Dean Smith's 2 great championships, and they both took place in New Orleans.
The Tar Heels have won the national championship right where they won it 11 years ago.
Very strange, odd things happen there, and the fact that it happened twice in the same city, in the same building, is one of the oddest coincidences in college sports.
You could almost put a chalk outline on the court at where Weber had his timeout, and not far away from that, you'd have another body, chalk outline of Freddie Brown as he was making that pass to James Worthy. And against the same North Carolina Dean Smith coach team. Amazing.
1 down, 4 to go. Here is reason number 4. Chris Webber. He was Michigan's leader, not only in the regular season, but in the tournament.
I think clearly on the court, with his enthusiasm and incredible talent, that Webber was the guy that really the show revolved around.
Webber to the right side, finger rolls it up and in.
I think the Michigan team fed off of Chris Webber's energy and intensity and his swagger. And when Chris Webber woke up, you knew you were in trouble.
Howard starts to drive, scoops to Webber. One-hand slam. Webber has 20.
As Michigan's top scorer in the NCAA tournament, Webber kept his team close in the final by scoring 23 points, grabbing 11 rebounds, and blocking 3 shots.
Chris Webber, obviously, if he's not on that team, they ain't playing in that game. And they're certainly not that close late in the game against a great team like North Carolina.
Webber steals the ball. Webber off to the races. Here we go. Chris goes in, slams it through. Webber with the steal and jam.
Chris was a very, very valuable player to our team. He played an outstanding game. Without him on the court, we wouldn't have had a chance of beating Carolina at all.
Alley up to Webber, slam it through!
I just remember Chris being fantastic in that game. Making some unbelievable post moves, unbelievable plays.
Drives baseline, puts up the shot, no good. Webber with a follow, scores!
Every time they needed a bucket, here he comes, score. He couldn't stop him getting rebounds, trying to motivate his team. He was doing everything for them.
Dumps it down low to Webber. Webber up for the slam dunk.
If it weren't for the display of basketball Chris Webber put on as we marched through the season and into the tournament, we wouldn't be talking right now.
That play didn't cost us a game. I think that, if it wasn't for the performance of a Chris Webber, we probably wouldn't have been this far.
You don't get to that position without Chris Webber. You don't get to the last 20 seconds of the national championship game if Chris Webber hasn't been your guy for 4 months.
What a great, great player. Look at all the games that he was involved in that they did win. So to blame Chris Webber for that particular game, I think is very unfair.
2 reasons down, 3 to go. Here is reason number 3. Steve Fisher. It was the Michigan head coach's responsibility to make sure his players knew no timeouts remained.
If Chris Webber called a timeout, regardless of what he says or I say, I'm the guy that should have made certain that everybody knew.
If I would have known we didn't have any timeouts left, I wouldn't have called a timeout. So, like I said, obviously I didn't know.
The coach should shoulder some of the blame in that situation. Your 5 guys on the court have to know what the timeout situation is.
With 46 seconds left, Michigan called its last timeout.
Now, during that timeout, I remember specifically as the guys are running out on the court, and you have to remember, there were 70-some thousand people in the Superdome, and all you could hear the whole game was just this dull roar. Fisher said, guys no timeouts as a run on the floor. So whether the players heard it or not is anybody's guess.
Weber, front court, Michigan out of timeout.
Anytime a player makes a mistake like the one Chris Webber made that night,
Technical foul on Michigan. They're out of timeouts.
you can say that the point wasn't made forcefully enough to him in that huddle before that possession that we don't have any timeouts left. Don't call one.
I thought we knew it, but apparently it didn't get communicated to the degree that it has to, because otherwise he would not have called a timeout.
The blame does belong with the coach. He may have told Chris Webber there were no timeouts left, but he didn't do it in a way where it registered, and he didn't emphasize it and give it the importance that it obviously deserved.
Have we begun to change your mind yet? If not, take a look at reason number 2. The North Carolina defense. The Tar Heels pressed, trapped, and harassed Michigan from the opening tip. And when the game was on the line, it was defense that forced Webber's mental lapse.
Defense was our calling card, more so than offense.
Down inside, Juwan Howard, blocked from behind by Lake.
Carolina plays great help defense. That's why they're able to trap. That's why they're able to get people in uncomfortable situations. That's why they were able to get Chris Webber in the situation he was at the end of the game.
The Tar Heels kept Michigan off balance most of the game. In the first half, they forced the Wolverines into 10 turnovers.
The double team is coming. They cause Rose to pick up his dribble. Throws it cross court and out of bounds. Carolina forces the turnover.
That was one of the trademark characteristics of a North Carolina team, particularly in being able to double the ball and then overplay the outlets.
During crunch time, Dean Smith's troops smothered the Michigan guards, leaving Webber to make something happen.
Carolina begins with pressure, overplaying defense, and they forced Chris Webber to bring the ball up the court.
When Chris got that ball, as soon as he came down, he just had that look in his eyes. Like he wanted to get rid of it. There was no one open, and he was trapped.
We jumped out. We forced them to travel, and the referee missed the call. I don't think I saw anybody that was open. If it was someone else to pass it to, I would have passed it to them. He didn't make the pass. He kept it in his hand. He kept pushing it up the sideline. And we stress in practice that, the out-of-bounds lines is an extra defender.
So here's Webber going down the right side in front of the Michigan bench. And George Lynch and Derek Phelps have him caught in the dark, dark hole of a double team.
He's basically got no other option except to call timeout or to throw up a prayer. Either way, he's trapped. Either way, Carolina wins the game.
I really believe we'd gotten the ball anyway with a 5-second count and won the game.
Blame Carolina for running its system to perfection. They trapped Chris Webber. They forced Chris Webber into making this mistake. So it's their fault, it's not Chris's.
And welcome back. You've seen reasons number 5 through 2. Now, just when you thought you might have enough to make up your mind, here is the number 1 reason why you can't blame Chris Webber. It never happened. According to the NCAA, the Fab Five never made it to a championship game.
None of that stuff ever happened because his name and the accomplishments of that particular team were erased from the annals of college basketball history.
In fact, they almost didn't exist. From the 1992 NCAA tournament through the 1993 season, the Fab Five are nowhere to be found.
In Chrysler Arena, it did not happen because there's no banners for those great Michigan Fab Five teams.
It gets worse. Webber's entire college career was tainted when it was revealed in a federal courtroom in 2002 that booster Ed Martin had paid Webber and 3 other Wolverines on other teams a total of $616,000.
It comes down to a booster who essentially was accused of providing illegal benefits to Chris Webber, among others.
There's a shadowy figure named Eddie Martin that was associated with the Michigan program and had an impact on the Michigan program for a number of years and ultimately cost the program dearly.
They have left their mark on Michigan. Obviously, the events that have unfolded here today have tainted that history, and that's why we're removing them from the record book. That's why we're taking the banners down.
It was a tragedy in a way, and it took a lot of the luster off of of that team.
Let me say that when we delete those wins from the records, we no longer won those games. By default, the other team won those games.
I guess maybe Chris Webber and others wish that the memory of that infamous moment could be wiped out as easily as the NCAA wiped out the records.
So now in the record books at Michigan, I don't think the Fab Five ever really existed. So there was no Fab Five, so there was no Chris Webber. So there was no error, so how can you blame him?
The game didn't happen? I was there. Maybe it didn't. It was just a bad dream on Bourbon Street.
Well, there you have it, the top 5 reasons you can't blame Chris Webber for Michigan losing to North Carolina in the 1993 NCAA Final. We at least hope we shed some new light on that fateful blunder. I'm Brian Kenny. Thanks for watching.